Afternoon, my name's Michael Gage from the University of Rochester. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak at EAMS 2020. I want to tell you about some recent developments in WebWork, the online homework system, that have occurred in the last 4 years since I spoke here at the conference 2016. One thing about those earlier lectures, our servers have changed, and so many of the links don't work anymore. You'll have to replace hosted 2 and devel 3 with demo, the new server that we've got, and then they should work. WebWork is similar to iMath AS with David Lippman, which David Lippman described to you on Wednesday. At the close of my lecture in 2016, I expressed some concern about what was going to happen to WebWork in the future. I needn't have worried. As you've already heard 2 lectures about the activities going on at Roger Morris University from Monica Van Duren and from Mariana Bonanome at CityTech, and you'll hear more on Monday from Jake Medina. I'll present some pointers on other recent ongoing WW developments. One that I'm really excited about is the extension of WebWork to other languages, including 4-byte character languages such as Hebrew and Chinese and emoji for that matter. I'll show you some Hebrew. And embedding WebWork questions. The second item is embedding WebWork questions into HTML pages and OER textbooks. This is being done in collaboration with Pretext and LibraText. This is something that's really become quite a thing in the United States, at least. OER textbook authors would like to embed the problems in the textbooks themselves as opposed to having students go to some other app in order to do the problems. And finally, I'll mention a little bit about community building. We've created the WebWork Project organization and a board, and hopefully that will help keep us running into the future. When you're translating a language, there are 2 things you have to translate. First, you have to translate the Chrome on the boundary of the WebWork screen, the buttons and the labels and things like that. And then you have to translate the content of the problems themselves. There's not a lot we can do about the content of the problems. That you pretty much have to do by hand. But the labels and buttons are all in all of the software code is all tagged and extracted into a dictionary. And all you have to do is to translate the labels and buttons in that dictionary, create a new dictionary. So you don't have to go back into the code and change the text there. So Hebrew. Nathan Wallach at Technion University has been the lead on this project, and in fact he's been one of the people helping to push the localization, internationalization of WebWork in general. Let me just show you an example of what happens on our local server here. There it is. So this thing was written and translated by, sorry, this wasn't translated. These things here were automatically translated. We didn't have translations for these. These things like the submit button and the guest button, these were translated automatically. Let's take a look at the problems themselves. All of these are automatic translations from the dictionary. The text here is translated by hand, although probably the code is the same as the English version. Many of these were written separately. Nathan wrote a lot of problems himself, but some of them probably started as the basis of the English version. Here is an example of a calculus course that Nathan is teaching right at the moment. So Technion has completely gone over to using WebWork for their homework. Nathan is very busy writing content in Hebrew and presenting it to his students. Here's the next problem, the next problem after that. Move on to French. The lead implementer there has been Julie Tremblay at the Collège de Bois de Boulogne, and with a lot of other contributors. Here's a sample of on our local server here of what French problems look like. I got to get used to going from left to right again. Go in as guest. Here's a sample problem. Let's see if there's a more interesting homework section here. Okay, this is the kind of thing that they've done. Here's their site. They've actually developed, with the Centre de Collégial de Développement de Matériel Didactique, has created a WebWork site where you can host a WebWork course in French. So that's quite a contribution on their part. And here's where the French questions are stored, the GitHub, where they have already a large collection of problems written in French. So I leave you with those pointers to investigate if you're interested in them. Another person who's been very active is Enrique Acosta in Colombia, who has been writing questions, WebWork questions in Spanish, and also has a website. Let's just go straight to his website. In fact, let's go to his course on differential equations. Again, we can log in as a guest. That's the bottom button there. Here's a sample of some of the homework problems. Again, these things were translated just by a dictionary, and then the translations of the problem themselves had to be done by hand. Although you could usually reuse the code from the original problems. They've done more. They've got a Spanish tutorial on how to use WebWork on that same website. So hopefully we'll have a lot more people from Mexico and from South America using WebWork. And again, here is Enrique's GitHub, where he is busy creating the open problem, a Spanish version of the open problem library. We're not 100% sure how we should organize this, but for the moment what we plan to do is to have separate libraries, one for each language, kind of loosely coordinated, same kind of organization, but the Spanish problems and the French problems and the English problems would all be in separate libraries, and you just switch libraries when you want a problem in a different language. There are some other languages in which the labels have been partially translated, but there aren't any problems available. You can take a quick look at them here. It also tells us something about our efforts to do this language translation. Let's say Turkish is fun. You can see that there's some of the problems, some of the stuff has been translated in Turkish at least. Chinese. But we're looking for contributors who can help more with that. So Enrique's workflow for constructing the PO directory uses a spreadsheet. You can see here is the original name right here, and here is the translation. And this gives you some context as to where things are. Another option, instead of using the spreadsheet, is to use transfix.com, which also is an online system that does that also helps you create they're called PO dictionaries to do the translation. Okay. Embedding questions in HTML. So here's the simplest example right here. This is just an HTML page. You can see it's running GeoGebra inside that problem. It's an active problem. You can answer it. You can check the answers online, and so on. So this uses very elementary technology. It's basically just an iframe. You can embed an iframe anywhere in HTML. We are bouncing it, in this case, off my server, demo.webwork.rochester.edu, but you could use any server, any WebWork server, any modern one at least. It needs to have a course, which I've called a daemon course here, and it needs to have a user ID and I've called daemon, and he has to have at least TA privileges. And then you can, the problems that you can pose are any problem that's in the library. This is the string that tells you which the problem is. So it's very simple to add WebWork problems to any HTML page. You can do this with Pretextbook. So Pretext is founded by Robert Beezer, University of Puget Sound. It's an XML textbook markup that's a superset of tech. Its aim is to write once and read anywhere. So you can get output in HTML, PDF, ebooks, Braille, other things. Stay tuned. And it aims to automatically give OER authors the quality production values associated with commercial textbooks. Matt Belkins at Grand Valley State University uses this in his active calculus example. Let's take a quick look at that. So here's the text of the problem. And down here at the bottom, let's see, it's one section. We start to have exercise. So these are the WebWork exercises embedded into the text. At the moment, they're basically embedded as iframes. One of our projects this summer is to try and have more sophisticated ways of embedding these problems. It's a little bit more secure, less likely to be tampered with. The person who's done the most to develop these questions in Pretext is Alex Jordan, and I've got several links here that you can look at and see how they work. Let's see. This might be worth looking at. You can see that they just insert quick questions in the middle of chapters and so on to see if you're following along properly. That's the idea that they're aiming for. There are some other links I'll let you explore on your own. Similar things are being done with LibraText. LibraText is founded by Delmer Larson, who's at the Department of Chemistry at UC Davis. And his idea is to host all of the OER textbooks from all the STEM subjects on one platform. And the goal is to gather them all together and allow it that you can mix and match selections, they call it remix, to create customized text for an instructor's class. And he plans to have MyOpenMath and WebWork embedded homework questions in much the same ways with Pretext, and that's a project we're working on this summer. I'll leave you to explore some of the links yourself. Finally, the WebWork Project. The umbrella organization, the WebWork Project, has been formed with a board and a bank account. It does not yet have nonprofit status. We're hoping for that. And it's going to help shepherd and coordinate and support individual WW initiatives past now that the NSF grants have run out. Here's a link to, again, on that demo site. Robin Cruz is currently the president. Past president was John Travis. I'm the past president. I'm still treasurer because I still have the bank account. Mariana is one of the program coordinator. Danny Glynn and Timothy Flowers are the rest of the people on the board. So we're hoping that that will keep us going for a while. Here are the important WebWork sites if you want to explore more on your own. I've put these in the section, the WebWork section on Moodle. The wiki is where most of the information is. All of this, the infrastructure for all of these things has been rebuilt in the last year. We're still curating some of the material, but things like search and so on work much better than they used to. Thank you very much.